Darkness, silence. Then, the sudden roar of firepower that ripped through the night like thunder crashing against steel. The Japanese infantry had faced machine guns, mortars, and artillery. They had been hardened by endless campaigns across China, Burma, and the Pacific Islands. But nothing prepared them for this. It wasn't just a gun. It was a nightmare packed into a weapon of wood and steel. The Winchester M12 trench gun, a short-barreled pump-action shotgun that could slam fire round after round without pause. In the suffocating jungles of Guadalcanal and the muddy foxholes of the Philippines, this brutal weapon tore through the darkness, shredding through bamboo walls, clearing trenches, and leaving soldiers paralyzed in fear. Some reports whispered of squads disappearing in seconds. Others described men clutching their chests, unable to comprehend how a single soldier could unleash such devastation. And yet, this weapon carried its own curse. For those who wielded it, survival was never guaranteed. The jungle was unforgiving. Ammunition ran dry, and the enemy learned quickly, hunting trench gun carriers with a vengeance. It was said that once the Winchester's slam fire started, only silence followed, because no one on the other side lived to tell the tale. But what was the dark truth behind this infamous gun? And why did the Japanese fear it more than any other weapon? The year was 1942. The Pacific theater was in chaos. Japan had swept across Asia with terrifying speed, and the United States found itself fighting a desperate war across unfamiliar terrain, steamy jungles, coral atolls, and volcanic ridges where every step could be your last. American soldiers carried the standard M1 Garand, the reliable Springfield rifle, and the Thompson submachine gun. But for the brutal face-to-face combat in the Pacific, commanders knew they needed something different, something devastating at close range. Enter the Winchester M12 trench gun. Originally designed during World War I, the trench gun had earned a reputation for its sheer stopping power. Its short barrel made it easy to maneuver in tight spaces, and its ability to slam fire, holding down the trigger while pumping out shells in rapid succession, meant it could unleash a storm of lead unlike anything the enemy had ever seen. For the young soldiers handed these weapons, the experience was overwhelming. Most were barely out of high school, 19, 20 years old, armed with a shotgun better suited for blasting through a door than fighting in a jungle. Their hands trembled as they loaded brass shells into the chamber, sweat dripping down their foreheads in the stifling Pacific heat. They knew what awaited them: night raids, banzai charges, ambushes from hidden foxholes. And with each whisper of the jungle, with each rustling leaf, their grip on the shotgun tightened. But while the weapon offered power, it also carried danger. Ammunition was heavy. Soldiers carrying trench guns often ran low on rounds in prolonged fights. Worse, Japanese soldiers quickly identified them as priority targets. To carry the M12 meant painting a bullseye on your back. And yet, in those moments when the enemy charged with bayonets fixed and screams piercing the night, the trench gun became more than a weapon. It was survival itself. But survival in the Pacific was fleeting, because the jungle had a way of swallowing even the strongest men whole. At first, the M12 trench gun was almost mythic. Soldiers returning from early island battles told stories of how it broke Japanese charges in seconds. A single Marine, they claimed, could stop a dozen attackers. The sound alone, the mechanical slam of the pump action, became synonymous with fear. But reality was far darker. Jungle warfare magnified every weakness. Fog and rain soaked the weapons, making the wood swell and the steel rust. Mosquitoes, disease, and exhaustion ate away at the men as surely as bullets did. And then there was the psychological toll. Every night, soldiers lay awake in foxholes, their shotguns cradled against their chests, knowing that at any moment, a sudden cry could shatter the silence. A cry that meant dozens of enemy soldiers were charging through the undergrowth with only one goal: to kill them before dawn. The slam fire offered a desperate kind of comfort. Each shell expelled in a blinding flash, each pump a heartbeat in the chaos. But every man knew the truth. For all its devastating power, the trench gun could not save everyone. One squad in Guadalcanal held a position through the night, their shotgunner mowing down wave after wave. When the sun rose, he was still clutching the weapon, but his ammo bag was empty, and his squad was gone. Survivors said the weapon turned him into a ghost, alive but hollow-eyed, forever haunted by the storm he had unleashed. Worse still, the Japanese began to adapt. They hunted trench gun carriers with snipers and grenades, They spread stories that these shotguns violated the rules of war, turning them into both a weapon and a curse. To carry one meant that if captured, your fate would be far worse than death. And yet, time after time, soldiers still chose to carry it, because in the Pacific, there were no second chances. It was on the islands of Saipan and Peleliu where the weapon's legend and its curse truly came alive. Picture the scene. The air thick with smoke, palm trees shattered by artillery, sand stained with blood. Marines crept forward through shattered bunkers, the enemy hidden in caves and tunnels. Rifles were too slow, grenades too few, and then the roar of the trench gun. One Marine described it as unleashing hell itself in the jungle. With slam fire, the weapon spat out shells in a blur, each blast echoing like thunder. The effect was devastating. At close range, there was no escape, but there was a price. In the chaos of one charge, a shotgunner fired until the barrel smoked and the pump jammed. Surrounded, he fought until the very last shell. Then silence. His comrades found him hours later, weapon still clutched in his hands, his body lying amid the carnage he created. Moments like these defined the trench gun's reputation. It was the weapon that could shatter a charge, clear a tunnel, or stop an ambush cold. But it also demanded everything from the men who carried it. And perhaps that was its darkest truth. The gun didn't just consume the enemy. It consumed the soul of the soldier pulling the trigger. In the aftermath of the Pacific War, the Winchester M12 trench gun became a symbol of both power and terror. For those who faced it, it was unforgettable. For those who carried it, it was a burden they would never escape. Many veterans refused to speak of their experiences, their silence a haunting reminder of what they had seen. Others remembered the sound of slam fire as vividly as the cries of their fallen friends. The weapon had offered survival, yes, but it had also carved scars into the minds of those who lived to tell the tale. Strategically, the trench gun proved that in the brutal reality of jungle and trench warfare, close-range weapons were often the deadliest. Its use reshaped how armies thought about combat in confined, unforgiving terrain, and yet the weapon faded into history. The Winchester M12 was eventually retired, replaced by newer designs, its legend buried under layers of forgotten stories. But those who fought in the Pacific never forgot. To them it wasn't just a shotgun. It was the sound of life and death in the jungle, a storm of fire that could save a squad, or leave a soldier cursed by the ghosts of those he cut down. And so the question lingers, was the Winchester M12 trench gun the savior of the Pacific, or the weapon that condemned its carriers to a fate worse than death?